Welcome. I'm Sue Landay. This is Show and Share, and we're joined today by Britt Andreatta. And I should have conferred with you beforehand. How did I do pronouncing your name?
You did great. Technically it's Andreatta, but you did really
Andreatta.
well.
Okay. And Britt has an amazing set of experiences. She's currently the CEO of Brain Aware Training, which is focusing on brain-based training solutions and has written 4 books on the topic. She has a background in neuroscience, psychology, leadership, and learning. There are her books. She was the former CLO at lynda.com and has continued to consult. I said to Britt earlier today, what took us so long to get together? And so I'm delighted to have you here today and to join us and enlighten us. And congratulations. I noticed that on the ATD website that you were the thought leader of the year. And that is just tremendous. So kudos
Thank
to you.
you. Thank you. It's so funny. You don't start out your career being, I want to be a thought leader. So it's just, I followed the things that just really interested me as a training professional, and geeked out on them and then shared them with my peers. And I still am very humbled that people find great value in my work and see me as an influencer in the training and learning space. So, didn't set out to do that, but really excited that, we all geek out on the same thing. So part of what I'm here to do today is share a couple principles that many of you might find useful in your work. We're going to do these in like little 5-minute snippets. So I'm going to cover focus and active learning. We'll look at behavior change and habits. I'm going to give you one of my favorite tools at the end for driving results, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So thank you, Sue, for
Perfect.
inviting me to be part of this and to connect with your community. And I'm looking forward to uh, engaging with all of you.
Thrilled to have you.
Thank you. So let's jump in with focus and active learning. I mean, I like to bring the neuroscience perspective. All learning is building a neural pathway. So whether we're teaching someone a new skill or giving them a new way to think about something, we're messing with neural pathways. And the research on the brain science of learning is really phenomenal. The technology has come to the point where we can see which region of the brain is being activated. We can look at individual structures within the brain. It's even down to individual neurons and the sounds they make when they fire and which neuron bundles are dedicated to which activity in the brain. It's pretty phenomenal. And then
So
also we
cool.
can see all the networks of the brain firing at the same time. So imaging has come a long way. We certainly all are familiar with an MRI machine, but now they have these skull caps, which can be worn while people are doing real things. And there's a lot of researchers who are going into real workplaces and putting them on and saying, go about your day and let's just see what happens when people are working. So we now have a lot more information about our human brains and biology. Some things that I love to highlight for people is that we have 10,000 different types of neurons. And we have 86 million neurons in our bodies, and that leads over to 100 trillion connections that can be fired in your system. These are neural connections or synapses. So wear your helmet. If you walk away with nothing else, in your head is like this very complex system. And if it gets damaged, it's hard to recover from it. So protect it at all costs. I also, before I get into some of the data points, like to talk a little bit about neurodiversity because not everyone is the same, right? So we can think about folks on a continuum from neurotypical to neurodivergent. When we're looking at studies, neurotypical is the mean, the mode, the median, kind of what's the average or what's the middle of the group. And neurodivergent is everything else. It's the ends of the bell curve. And so I love this quote by John Robison, who says, neurodiversity is the idea that neurological differences are the result of normal, natural variation in the human genome. And if you have not started exploring neurodiversity, I encourage you to look at it because it really does shape how we meet the needs of all learners and not just those that kind of sit in the middle of the bell curve. So let's talk about focus. Our brains are designed to focus on something, and when we're learning, we tune into it and we focus on it, we're paying attention. The brain structure that's activated here is the hippocampus. And neuroimaging shows that it's actually a pronged structure that unites the left and the right hemisphere. So it sits in the middle, and then, oops, I activated balloons. It I don't know how I did that, but yay, hippocampus.
Okay.
It unites the left and the right hemispheres, and our hippocampus works kind of as a data drive. So we're taking information in. The hippocampus is that what pushes that learning into long-term memory. And that's why if people have damage to their hippocampus, like 51st dates, where someone has very short-term memory that doesn't last very long. So hippocampus plays a big role. But when we think about focus, our ability to focus on average as humans, we have a 20-minute maximum before our brain naturally tunes out and wants to do something else. So I now only build training in
Mm.
15-minute chunks. Do 15 minutes of training, and then we do a hands-on practice activity of some kind. You can take those
Wow.
20 minutes and string them together to make a whole day or half a day, but I literally only talk at most for 15 minutes before they're applying. And that really changed how I approach training when I learned that. Of course, using all kinds of tools, allowing people to fidget, letting them play with things while they're learning can be a great way for them to increase their focus. Some people's focus increases when they're fidgeting. And so you want to also make different tools available for people as they're learning. The other thing I want you to know about active learning is the aha moment is kind of the gold standard in learning. When someone has that aha moment where they see something new or have a new perspective, the brain is permanently changed. They can never unsee it again. So if you have the choice between telling somebody something and maybe it takes you
I
5 minutes
am,
to
but I
tell
don't
them,
need to.
but they can do an activity and it takes 15 minutes, but
Okay.
then they come to their own aha moment about it. Pick the aha moment because it makes learning so sticky. The brain is permanently changed as a result. If you want to geek out on the science of it, there's a whole book called The Eureka Moment. We now know that a third of a second before we have that aha moment, there's a burst of gamma waves above our right ear in the anterior temporal gyrus. And a second before that, our visual cortex goes offline for a millisecond. It's called the brain blink.
Huh.
And what's really interesting is when I'm in a group of, in a huge lecture hall, I'll ask the audience, okay, where do you get your best ideas? Where do your aha moments happen? And most of them happen in the shower for people. And it's because when we're in the shower, we kind of create the brain blink. We kind of take a lot of visual stimuli away. We've got white noise, and it primes our brain for having the aha moment. So we can do things to help our learners, get there. One other piece I'd want to tell with you about the brain is we have this thing called the default mode network. And it's what lights up when our mind wanders. So when you let yourself daydream a little bit, or you stop concentrating on something and you kind of, daydream a little bit, it lights up. And it's also most active in metacognition. So when we're having people think about thinking, it also lights up. What's interesting about the default mode network is it serves as an orchestra conductor. So when it's active, it is in your brain kind of controlling how many neurons can connect to each other so that you're not overwhelmed. And it operates a little bit as a train conductor. Um, One of the things that's really interesting is that when people study folks who are doing psychedelics, one of the things that psychedelics does is it takes the default mode network offline and look at how many more connections start firing when that's happening. If you want to geek out on the science of that, the book to read is How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. And what's also interesting is babies don't have a fully developed default mode network. So babies are essentially all the time sitting in a state of wonder and kind of have a tripping brain all the time. And then as we get older, this conductor comes on and starts to control how much we can experience at the same time. Sue,
So,
it looks
Britt,
like
do
you had
you
a
think of
question.
that as a positive or negative, or just as that is what it is, and then how do we train for that?
Well, it's interesting. Psychedelics were used in the 60s. Like several of the founders of Silicon Valley said that it would have never gotten started without them dropping acid because it was during these moments that their brains saw, like it's how the microchip was conceived, was when someone was having this moment. Um, and some companies today do use microdosing to boost innovation and things. I am not advocating for that. What I am saying, though, is there's been a lot of amazing research. They've also found the use of psychedelics has really had powerful impacts on people who suffer from depression and anxiety, and they're using it as a psychological treatment tool.
Hmm.
Um, so what I'm saying is there's still so much for us to learn about the brain, right? And how we maximize the brain. But I think the good news here is that when we give people time to daydream or let their mind wander, it's not wasted time. It's priming the brain to have aha moments because that's when these connections can fire. In fact, as a training designer, I would encourage you to think about this. This is how we cultivate aha moments. We prepare the brain by giving people lots of information, maybe data that they haven't been exposed to before, and then take a break. Walk away from it. Stop thinking about it. Let it go, because that's when your brain is going to do its thing and start to make some of these connections. And then you can intentionally kind of set yourself up by doing the sensory gating, like taking a shower or meditating or doing something where you kind of just let your senses take a break. If you want to induce insight, my three favorite strategies are to introduce a range of concepts, like I'll introduce a couple models or three different data points because I'm setting them up to draw the connections between them as opposed to me connecting the dots. Whenever we let
I think that
people learn on
gets
their
to Nora's comment about including reflection prompts,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Letting people learn on their own. If you say, hey, I'm going to tell you about X, as opposed to between now and our next meeting, I want you to all go research X and come back with a couple things to share. When we go look for information that activates the reward centers in the brain and people are much more engaged in learning.
Mm.
Certainly give people time for reflection. I love to end a training with some kind of prompt that sets them up to have those aha moments when we're not together. And then when we come back together, the first thing I do is say, all right, let's hear from folks. What's a new thought or insight you've had since the last time we met? And then, of course, have them actively apply the learning. So you may have introduced a concept and now you have them try it on by applying it to their current project or team. Again, there's lots of tools available to you to do things like that take people into a new experience or have them practice. So that's my first little chunk I want to give you is this idea of focus and insight and how we can be very intentional about activating it. Let's
And we
hear from
appreciate the little, so the prior screen was some tools that Britt found on the Trainers Warehouse website to do some of these things. So I appreciate that call out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we want to use a resource like Trainers Warehouse to give us the online or in-room tools to set up some of these activities. So let's hear from you guys. I'm going to set the timer for a couple minutes here, but share in the chat. Or if yeah, we're up to 60. Let's use the chat. Take a couple minutes to share how you can maximize these elements of the brain in either your own learning. I mean, we're all learners, right? We're lifelong learners, or the learning programs you offer. So kind of the 20-minute max that we can focus, how to set up an aha moment or induce that insight. Let's hear from you guys. And Sue's going to read out some of your answers as they come in.
And I'm pausing before I read because Jennifer's first comment about embracing silence is a good one because as soon as we start talking, if you haven't already come to that thought on your own and started typing it in, it gets really hard to do so. It's actually one of the reasons we use those answer boards is to give everybody a chance to think and write in real time before they start hearing other people's input. Introducing concepts instead of relying on the sage and the stage. Yes, Megan, thank you. The 20-minute max focus for me. hmm It's really hard to keep yourself to that when you feel like you have so much to say. But
Hmm.
put up the slide, have people group together and let them digest and discuss rather than you're reading those slides to them.
Yeah. And then you can fill in like 90% of the time, they will have come up with 8 of the 10 bullets you had to share with them anyway. And then you can just add the last couple as you process the activity, right?
Yep. Engagement every 10 minutes from Jennifer, storytelling, um, introducing different machines with the same process, using blocks of time to connect information, reflections, role plays. Um, Embarrassing silence is difficult for new trainers. I fall into that trap all the time, and I don't think of myself as new, but it's hard for all of us. Um, Deficit learning has been helpful in past exercises. That's something I need to learn more about. Um, yes, I hate when people read their slides. 3, 2, 1 recap. 3 things I learned, 2 things I'll apply, one to share. Great ideas. And we're at the 0, 0 mark. What else do you need to respond to, Britt?
Well, I love all this, and I think it's really just for me as a trainer, it also gave me permission. Sometimes we can be building something and we're working on, and then it feels like there's a time crunch, but we're kind of stuck. I now very confidently give myself breaks because I know I'm going to walk away from this thing and I'm going to go garden or play pickleball or go for a bike ride. And when I do that, my brain's still working on it. And now I trust it. Inevitably, the new ideas get fed up to me. The thing I was stuck about, I get unstuck. Um, so I think part of it is also giving ourselves permission to trust that breaks are good. Breaks are actually beneficial when we're especially when we're trying to be creative or have some new breakthroughs.
Yeah.
All right, the second chunk I want to give you from brain science has to do with behavior change and habits. I can't think of a single training we roll out where we're not trying to shift some kind of behavior, right? To be a better manager, to be more efficient, to have safer practices, to have higher quality. We're trying to shift something. And the good news is, as a species, we're wired to do. We're wired to learn from doing and learn from others. So I also talk about we're wired for story. So the other image that I kind of have is like our cavemen ancestors sitting around the fire and telling the story of the hunt. And then we can also go on the hunt. So parts of our biology help us do these things. The brain structure that's most active in forming habits and changing behavior is the basal ganglia. And its whole job is to turn repeated behaviors into habits. Think about when you're learning a new skill, like a new piece of software or learning to drive. When we're learning, we're spending a lot of energy in the prefrontal cortex when we're concentrating. And when we're doing that, our brain burns glucose. In fact, that's how science measure it, is by sugar burn. It's also why when you're really working on something, you get that sugar craving. It's related.
Hmm.
But when we do the behavior over and over and over again, the basal ganglia goes, this is not a good use of our energy. So it turns that behavior into a low energy package. We see the glucose burn drop way down, and it actually moves from the prefrontal cortex into a different part of the brain so that that behavior becomes a habit. It becomes something that we do without thinking about. So most of us don't think about the act of driving anymore. And yet at the beginning, it was like, oh my gosh, the mirrors and the brake and the gas, and for some of us, a clutch. Now your body just knows how to drive and you don't really think about it. That's because the basal ganglia turned it into a habit. This is also why people get really annoyed when you change something on them. They're verbalizing the discomfort of, wait, I had a habit and now you're messing with my habit. Um, so we do know that repetition is what builds habits, doing it over and over again. And there's a magic number. So at 20 repetitions, the neural pathway is formed, but the magic number is on average. So remember our bell curve, it's 40 to 50 repetitions. is what
Oof.
forms a habit, 40 to 50.
Wow.
And at 66, the neurons themselves start to thicken because they're like a muscle. The more you run them, the thicker they get. And so at 66 is when we can measure in the microscope the neurons getting thicker. So 40 to 50, if you have a training and you talk to managers about, how to have a good one-on-one, but they don't actually practice it in the room, when they go back to their office, they're just going to do it the old way because the old habit is in place. So when we're training, we got to build those repetitions in because that's how we get that pathway started. Um, and if you want to geek out more about this, it's the book, The Power of Habit, has all the studies in it. But I really like to think about, okay, what behavior do these people need to have, and you want to match your learning offerings to the people who need to develop a skill. And then at what level do they need that skill, right? Maybe a manager needs a novice level of understanding of budgeting, but your CFO better be a master of it, right? And so, do you have learning paths that meet the needs of the organization you're serving? And then a couple more things about habits. This is why practice is so important, getting to do it again and again, right? And when we think about time unfolding and we think about skill level, people have an expectation like, oh, I just keep doing it and I just keep getting better. But what really happens is that we move into mindful practice and we kind of hit a certain level of achievement and then it just stalls out. Where if we work on deliberate practice, we can build these moments of challenge, like we get a coach or a mentor, or we challenge ourselves at the edge of the skill. We set a specific goal. We move into a time of intense focus. We engage in feedback and we fix what we're doing. So this comes from the research of Anders Ericsson from the book Peak, The Secrets of the New Science of Expertise. But we know that when people really need to get better at something, we need to design deliberate practice because otherwise people kind of stall out. And so I really think about practice in my training that I built, and I also want to make it safe for people to learn and fail. So I always say, okay, we're going to give this a try. This is the throwaway. It's going to be messy. We're going to
Mm.
make mistakes. That's okay. We're just going to give this a try. And then, okay, what did we learn? Let's try it again. What would we shift? All right, now we're really getting it. Let's do a little bit more so you have it all locked in. All right, now let's groove it. This is where I want you to lean into doing this 40 or 50 times, and then you can really polish it. When I tell people practice makes a difference, sometimes it's helpful to show them what that looks like. I love TikTok because it's filled with lots of short videos we can use to demonstrate this. So these are two that I use. I'm gonna play this, and this is a girl who filmed herself learning how to do a handstand, and I think it just really shows that we don't just learn something overnight.
I do it over and over again. That's not fun.
Right? And I think it's great to normalize that it takes a lot of repetitions to get there. Here's another one I like to show. This woman, Anna Lapwood, is a famous concert organist. She goes and plays all the biggest halls around the world and is brought in to work, play alongside symphonies. So she's practicing for a concert, and you can see how complex the organ is. She's got 4 levels of keyboards. There's feet keyboards, and then there's these knobs that she pulls. And so what she's doing is she's practicing this piece of music, but every time she finds a rough spot, she goes back and runs the rough spot till it's smooth, and then she keeps going, finds another rough spot, runs it till it's smooth. And so again, I think it's great to show what master performers do to get good at something.
Having a little trouble with sound.
She's playing a Christmas song.
Okay.
Where's it coming through?
Yeah, we're not hearing this. But I also love, Britt, that this is coming from you as a former competitive skater. And, myself having been a gymnast and I still do my handstands all the time, it continues to take practice and repetition and falling down. And
All of
love
it.
that idea of the throwaway practice and thinking about practice as having those different time frames.
Exactly. So, find a couple of videos that are relevant to your group, but I think it's great to show people learning and how much it takes, right? And then, of course, expand your toolkit. We have lots of ways that work with the brain. We learn by watching other people. So, do you show videos of people who are really good at something so people can use observational learning? Video-based coaching. I film myself doing something, people give me feedback. Of course, scenarios and simulations are really, really powerful. Dental schools have things like this where people practice on dummies and get really good at it before they try it on a real human. Uh, this is a replica, an on-land replica of an oil rig. And everyone who works for this oil company comes and spends 2 weeks living on this on-land oil rig, and everything is to scale, and they practice their daily jobs as well as emergency scenarios so that that is grooved in their brain before they are on this highly dangerous ship. Um, and then we can also use now with AI and technology, there's live avatars we can use, there's AI generated scenarios, augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual reality. All of these tools give us basically the ability to create safe environments to learn, fail, and practice before people go do it in the real world. Here's an example I like to show. This is an avatar that's used for training people in the hospitality industry. She's AI generated, she's obviously AI, but she's listening to what the server is saying and then responding. And then the server is dealing with it in real time. And then the system gives the server feedback. And then they get to do it again and again until they get better at it. I'm going to stop sharing my slides and reshare them because I think when I share them with sound, yes, share sound. That's what I need to do.
And I also we want to just keep an eye on time. I think we're probably good to go over. Let's keep going, but just kind of want to
Yeah, this is the last thing I have to
acknowledge.
show. So
Okay.
let me just show you an example of what this can look like. And if the sound doesn't come through, we'll just stop it.
Okay.
Excuse me, I can't find my server. Do you know where she is?
No, I don't. Let me go find her for you.
Okay, but I'm in a bit of a hurry.
So the system gives the server tips for improving. Then they get to do it again.
Excuse me, I can't find my server. Do you know where she is?
I'm so sorry. I haven't seen her. Is there something I can help you with?
Can I get a coffee, please?
Coffee? Absolutely. Do you take it with cream and sugar or just plain black?
Just black, please.
Absolutely.
But there's areas for improvement, right?
Excuse me, I can't find my server. Do you know where she is?
I'm so sorry. I can go find her for you. But in the meantime, is there something I can help you with?
Can I get a coffee, please?
Would you like a latte, cappuccino,
Just coffee, thanks.
regular or decaf?
Just regular, please.
Wonderful. Can I get you anything to eat?
I'll have the eggs Benedict, please.
Delicious. I'll let your server know, and I'll put that order in for you right away.
Thank you.
So you can see that these tools have come a long way. Even if they're a little bit clunky, they give people the opportunity to practice in safe environments and groove the habits. So that your next thing to jump into the chat with is how could you use some of these tools, thinking about habits and developing mastery, and also creating opportunities to practice and get those 40 to 50 repetitions. Let's hear from you, and then we'll have a chance to go into Q&A.
Yeah, Julia, that was a similar thought that I had of you just using avatars for role playing. If you don't have the budget for that, doing that with real people and how to make that effective. Learning lab combo, says Jennifer, content knowledge delivered via e-learning and lab is, yeah, we're finding the balance between live, online, learn, all of that.
Yep.
Um,
And also, can you set up a great scenario or role play and film it and then make it available for everyone to see, right? So video can give us the ability to really scale some of this stuff.
well, and I'm kind of even thinking about like, this was probably 30 years ago, but using, when we use videos, like you could use the first part of the avatar and not have the AI give the feedback, but have a discussion then about it. In the same way we used to
Absolutely.
kind of start and stop role plays so that, people don't feel put on the spot, um, but have that evaluation experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. And then I'm sharing a little resource with you that has to do with driving results because engaging learning lives at the intersection of how well you do your discovery about what the problem is that needs to be solved, then how well you design your solution, and then how well that solution is delivered, right? So we have this sweet spot in the middle. But for the discover part of it, there are some ways we can go about that make us really clear about what the actual problem is. 90% of the time, when someone says, I need a training on X, your answer should not be, yep, we have that. When do you want it? It should be, well, tell me more, because usually they misdiagnose what they really need. And yet we will be judged on how well we solved the problem they didn't know they had. So I recommend, we're sharing with you a free section of the book that has all of my consulting questions I use when I'm trying to discover what the real issue is. So that's a PDF that Sue's going to make available to you. But if you want to dig in and get the whole book, I can offer you a 25% discount. This only works in the US and the UK where the printer is located. So if you're not in those countries, you're going to have to go to Amazon or your regular book area. But this QR code can be used if you're in the US or the UK. And now we have time for open discussion, questions, comments, any of the fun things we want to do.
Britt, thank you. Thank you for this. I know some have to hop off. We always make these sessions available. So if folks want to follow up and participate in some of, or listen in on some of the conversations, we'll have that.
Fantastic.
But thank you. So much richness to think about. Let's see what we've got in the chat for questions. And as we kind of wind down, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask verbally, we welcome that as well. Let's see, follow our own advice and give you a moment and deal with the silence.
Yes, and my husband was supposed to keep the cat out of this room, and he failed, so Miso has now joined us.
Julia says, I haven't, oh, sorry, personal, okay. Oh, you have an eye health app. I was thinking you were saying an appointment. You have an app that runs a 20-minute stop breaks for screen times. And, a few weeks ago, we did a session on different types of breaks, brain breaks, eye breaks, bio breaks, that is also available. Yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
answering Holly's question that wanted this slide up again, so she can have that information. I actually use this as a matrix to then look at who needs what learning path and then what content you have. And it really shows you where your gaps are. And sometimes you're over indexed. You'll find that you've got too many trainings in one area and not enough somewhere else.
Laura is asking, does watching someone practice count as practice through
It's a great
mirror
question.
neurons?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so mirror neurons, when we watch someone do an activity, the same part of our brain is activated. So there is some value in observational learning because your brain is getting a bit of a hit. It does help us. That's why you want people to watch people who are good at it. But there's nothing like doing it yourself. So you can watch a certain number of times, but then you got to make your own body do it because you haven't formed the neural pathway in your own body yet till you do.
Mm. And we have a question from Bobby about the systems that you're using for those avatars.
There's a whole bunch of them. So this one was just a sample from one company. I have videos from a bunch of different companies that are out there. You can also build your own now. I mean, I have to say, with all the AI tools that are coming, um, uh,
Are there economical resources that kind of come to mind for you or favorites if you're
yeah,
on a budget?
yes, I'm blanking on the name of it. I want to say it's Synthesia, synth something, Synth. You can basically, you get your training tool organized. Maybe you're using chat or Claude or something for that, but then you put it in there and you can choose the avatar and it literally makes a video from the transcript you created. And so you can build video learning. That's really amazing now.
Excellent. And thank you, Julia, for sharing the app that you
Synthesia.
use.
Yes, thank you, Barry.
Frank has agreed that
Yes.
Synthesia has been, and thank you, Barry, for that link. It looks like I'm going to need to check out Synthesia.
Yeah, it's scarily good. Like it's really good. It helps us do our jobs, but the question is, will it replace us? I still think we need to do the evaluating of the sources and the content, because as you know, ChatGPT hallucinates and makes up answers. But it can definitely be a tool to help us grow our catalog in a really powerful way.
An interesting comment by Gordon about engaging learners with the same activity and the same tools multiple times. And that was an interesting thing in the avatar too. Like what happens when you repeat the same exact thing?
Yeah, so we know from a lot of research in education that um, the behavior shift happens in the doing it again. So if, for example, you grade somebody's paper and they get a B and they look at the comments, they don't actually know how to write an A paper until they take those comments and rewrite the paper to fix those things. So we do want people to try it, get feedback, do it again, get feedback, do it again, because that's how they change their level from novice to master is in the trying it. And when I go into most companies, I do a lot of assessing of learning paths and learning strategies and organizations. And what we're often missing, we're content rich and practice deficit. And so practice, 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 because it's not that the training isn't working, it's that the behavior change hasn't shifted over yet. And so we need more practice.
Hmm. I feel like we kind of within the show and shares have talked a lot about, how to deliver in brain-friendly ways, with breaks, with participation, with getting people engaged and reflecting on their learning. But as you say, that piece of putting it into practice and repeating and creating habits that can't all happen in the classroom or it's at the workplace, it's afterwards, it's equipping managers and team leaders, coaches and colleagues to help continue with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may mean that we have to cut some content out to create more practice and
Mm,
then know that we can come back and do the second level. I think we try when we get learners to give them too much content and we don't give them enough time to try it on and practice. Or we say, go practice this on their own. But the minute they go back to their workstation, they're going to be inundated with things to do. So we really need to, even if they just do it 5 times in the room, pair them up, do 5 quick exchanges. It really makes a difference.
mm, excellent. Any other questions that we have for Britt? Yes, very. It
Yep.
is. Well, we want to be the experts. We all do, right?
Yes, and I think it's also sometimes it's that desire to be the expert. I think more often or not, we love learning. Like we geek out on this stuff. I had a hard time cutting my slides down today. Like I just, but I want them to know this, and oh, this is so cool too. And I think our enthusiasm for the subject matter, which is a wonderful trait, but it means we have to be even more strategic about the learner's experience, right? And not flooding them.
Britt, thank you so much for joining
Yes,
us
lovely
today.
meeting interview. If you want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn. My company is Brain Aware Training. I do speaking engagements. I've got the books that you might want to check out. And I always love connecting with my tribe. So hopefully we will follow each other and stay connected.
Wonderful. Thank you.